The alarm cut through the silence of the bridge like a knife. Captain Dae-hyun looked up from his reports, his dark eyes narrowing at the flashing red light on the communication panel. The Earth Defense Force vessel, Indomitable, had been docked at Outpost Meridian for 3 days now, taking on supplies and giving the crew some much-needed rest. That rest was apparently over. "Sir, we're receiving a quantum-encrypted message," said the communications officer, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. It's a galactic distress call." Dae-hyun stood from his chair and walked to the main screen. He was a tall man with sharp features and short black hair that was starting to show gray at the temples. 20 years in space had marked him, but his movements were still quick and precise. "Put it through." The message played. The voice was translated by the ship's computer, but even through the mechanical tone, Dae-hyun could hear the desperation. It was from someone called Velmara, a leader from the Velthara system. Her people were dying. Something called the Kreeth Swarm had come to their world, and they were being slaughtered. Millions were already dead. They needed help. They needed anyone who could hear them. "How long ago was this sent?" Dae-hyun asked. 17 hours, sir. It's been broadcasting on all galactic emergency channels since then." 17 hours. Dae-hyun felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Have any other ships responded?" The communications officer checked her screen. Her face went pale. "Sir, the message has reached 47 different civilizations. Not a single one has responded to help them." The bridge went quiet. Even the usual hum of the ship's systems seemed to fade into the background. Dae-hyun stared at the screen where the message had played. 47 civilizations had heard a cry for help, and every single one had turned away. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why hasn't anyone responded?" Dr. Haewon stepped forward from her station near the back of the bridge. She was the ship's chief xenobiologist, a woman in her early 40s with sharp intelligence in her eyes and a habit of pushing her glasses up when she was thinking. "I can tell you why, Captain. I've been reading the data attached to the distress call." She pulled up a holographic display that showed the Velthara system. The Kreeth evolved on a world with 2.8 times Earth's gravity. Their atmosphere is mostly sulfur dioxide with traces of chlorine gas. The temperature averages 90 degrees Celsius. For most galactic species, these conditions are instantly fatal. Lieutenant Tae-sung, the tactical officer, leaned forward in his seat. He was younger than the captain, broad-shouldered and always ready for action. "So the other species can't help because they can't survive the environment?" "Exactly," Haewon said. "The Galactic Union is mostly made up of species from garden worlds. Moderate gravity, breathable atmospheres, comfortable temperatures. They've built their entire civilization around those conditions. The Kreeth and the Velthara system represent something they simply cannot handle." Dae-hyun crossed his arms. "But we can." It wasn't a question. Haewon nodded slowly. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, Captain. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Variable gravity, extreme temperature swings, toxic elements, high radiation. Our bodies adapted to handle things that would destroy most galactic species." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They all knew Earth was different. They'd learned that in the 23 years since humanity had joined the galactic community. Other species treated them with a mixture of fascination and fear. Humans could eat foods that were poison to others. They could survive injuries that would kill most aliens. They healed faster, endured longer, and pushed harder than anyone else in known space. But this was different. This wasn't just about being tough. This was about walking into hell itself. "Sir," Tae-sung said carefully, "Earth Command's standing orders are to avoid galactic conflicts. We're supposed to remain neutral in all matters that don't directly involve human interests." "I'm aware of our orders, Lieutenant." Dae-hyun turned to face his crew. 200 people served on this ship, 200 lives that he was responsible for. He looked at each station, seeing the faces of men and women who had trusted him to lead them. "Pull up the message again," he said quietly. The communication officer obeyed. Velmara's voice filled the bridge once more. The desperation was clear. The terror was real. These were people who were dying, who were watching their world burn, who had sent out a plea to anyone who might hear them. And 47 civilizations had heard, 47 chances for someone to help, and all 47 had said no. Dae-hyun made his decision. "Communications? Send a response to the Velthara system. Tell them Earthship Indomitable is en route. We'll be there in 3 days." "Sir," Tae-sung stood up. "We'll be directly violating our orders." "I know." Dae-hyun's voice was calm. "Note my decision in the log. I'm taking full responsibility. When we get back to Earth, they can court-martial me if they want. But I'm not going to stand here and let millions of people die when we're the only ones who can help them." He turned to address the entire bridge crew. "I won't order anyone to come with me on this. If anyone wants to transfer to another ship before we leave, I'll approve it. No questions asked. But I'm going to the Velthara system. I'm going to answer that distress call." Silence fell over the bridge. Dae-hyun waited, wondering if anyone would speak up. Wondering if anyone would choose safety over this insane mission. Tae-sung was the first to sit back down at his station. "Course plotted to Velthara system, sir. We can make it in 3 days if we push the engines to maximum." Haewon adjusted her glasses and smiled. "I'll start preparing briefing materials on the Kreeth. The crew should know what they're facing." One by one, every member of the bridge crew returned to their stations. Not a single person asked to leave. Dae-hyun felt something warm in his chest. Pride, maybe. Or hope. "All hands. This is the captain. Prepare for immediate departure. Set course for the Velthara system. Maximum velocity. We have people to save." The Indomitable undocked from Outpost Meridian 15 minutes later. As the ship accelerated toward faster-than-light speed, Dae-hyun stood at the forward viewport and watched the stars blur into lines of light. Somewhere out there, millions of people were dying. They had called for help, and the galaxy had turned its back. But Earth hadn't. Humanity hadn't. Because that was what Deathworlders did. They answered the call when no one else would. They walked into the fire when everyone else ran away. They were the species that evolution had tried to kill and failed. And now, they were going to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, and the stars disappeared into the swirling tunnel of quantum space. 3 days. They had 3 days to prepare for a battle that no one else in the galaxy could fight. Dae-hyun just hoped they would be fast enough. The briefing room was packed with people. Every seat was filled, and more crew members stood along the walls. Captain Dae-hyun looked out at the faces before him. Marines, pilots, engineers, medical staff. All of them had volunteered to fly into danger. All of them deserved to know what they were facing. Dr. Haewon stood at the front of the room with a holographic display floating beside her. She looked tired. She had spent the past 30 hours studying everything known about the Kreeth, and it showed in the dark circles under her eyes. "The Kreeth swarm," she began, pulling up an image of a creature that made several crew members gasp. It looked like a nightmare made real. A silicon-based life form with 6 legs, armored plating, and mandibles that could tear through metal. They evolved on a world called Kreeth Prime, 2.8 times Earth's gravity. Surface temperature averaging 90 degrees Celsius. Atmosphere composed primarily of sulfur dioxide and chlorine gas. Sergeant Sang-woo, a stocky Marine with a scar across his left cheek, raised his hand. "So how do they survive? I mean, that sounds like it would kill anything." "That's exactly the point, Sergeant. It would kill most things. But the Kreeth aren't most things. They're silicon-based, not carbon-based like us. They breathe gases that would dissolve our lungs. They thrive in heat that would cook most organic life. They're evolution's answer to a world even harsher than Earth." Private Yoonji, sitting in the front row, spoke up. She was young, barely 22, with bright eyes and dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. This was her first real mission, and her nervousness showed. If they're so tough, how are we supposed to fight them? HFY smiled grimly. That's the interesting part. The Kreeth have never encountered humans before. They've faced dozens of other species and they've won every time. Do you know why? She pulled up a star map showing various alien civilizations. Look at these species. The Trill from Andara 7 evolved on a 0.9 gravity world with a perfect oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere. The Kelesh from Primus Minor, 0.7 gravity, temperate zones only. The Yule from the Azure Ring. Aquatic species can't survive outside water for more than an hour. The map highlighted each species' home world, and a pattern became clear. Every single one was a paradise world, comfortable, safe, easy. The Galactic Union is made up almost entirely of species from garden worlds, HFY continued. They've never had to fight for survival the way we did. When they face the Kreeth's environment, they die. Not in hours, in minutes, sometimes in seconds. She pulled up an image of Earth. The blue and green marble hung in space, beautiful and deadly. Earth is different. Earth is a Class 12 death world. That's the second highest classification in the galactic database. Only 3 other worlds rank higher, and none of them produced intelligent life. Engineer Hyun-sik, a thin man with grease stains on his uniform, leaned forward. What makes Earth so dangerous? Everything, HFY said simply. Variable gravity zones, extreme temperature ranges from -80 to +55 Celsius. Toxic elements in the environment, high radiation levels, violent weather patterns, earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis. Predators that evolve specifically to kill, diseases that constantly adapt. Earth spent 4 billion years trying to kill everything that lived on it. She turned to face the crew. And we survived. More than that, we thrived. We developed redundant biological systems, multiple organs doing the same job in case one fails, pain tolerance that lets us keep fighting even when injured. The ability to function in extreme heat and cold, resistance to toxins and radiation. We heal faster than any other known species. We can go longer without food or water. We can survive injuries that would be instantly fatal to most galactic races. The room was silent. Everyone understood what she was saying. They were different. They had always known it, but hearing it laid out like this made it real. Lieutenant Tae-sung stood up from where he had been leaning against the wall. So when the Kreeth attack in their high-gravity toxic environment, other species can't fight back. But we can. More than that, HFY said, the Velthara system has 1.7 times Earth gravity. The atmosphere has sulfur compounds and acidic rain. Surface temperature is 68 degrees Celsius. For a Trill or a Kelesh, that's instant death. For us, she shrugged, it's uncomfortable, but we can function, we can fight, we can win. Private Yunji raised her hand again. What about the Velthara? The people we're trying to save, can they survive their own world? Barely, HFY admitted. They're an aquatic species. They live in sealed underwater cities where they can control the environment. When the Kreeth attack, they're forcing the Velthara out of those safe zones. It's genocide. Captain Dae-hyun finally spoke up. How many Velthara are left? HFY's face fell. When the first distress call went out, their population was 8.3 million. That was 17 hours ago. By now, she paused. Probably less than 5 million. The Kreeth don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. They consume everything. The weight of that number settled over the room. 3 million people dead in less than a day. 3 million lives that might have been saved if someone had answered sooner. Sang-woo stood up, his jaw set. So we go in there and we kill these things. All of them. Until there's nothing left but us and the people we came to save. Several Marines nodded in agreement. The mood in the room shifted. The fear didn't disappear, but it was joined by something else: determination, anger, purpose. Dae-hyun looked at his crew and felt pride swell in his chest. "We jump out of faster than light in 43 hours. Use that time to prepare. Check your equipment. Study the briefing materials. Get some rest. This is going to be the hardest fight any of us have ever faced." He paused, making eye contact with as many people as he could. "But we're going to win. Do you know why? Because the galaxy gave up on the Velthara. 47 civilizations heard their cry for help and decided it was too dangerous, too difficult, too impossible. But we don't know the meaning of impossible. We come from a world that spent billions of years teaching us one lesson: survive, no matter what." The crew began to stand, energy flowing through the room like electricity. "The Kree think they're unstoppable," Dae-hyun continued, his voice rising. "They've never lost. They've crushed every species they've encountered, but they've never met us. They've never fought Deathworlders. They're about to learn what happens when you threaten something that humanity decides to protect." Sang-woo slammed his fist on the table. "Let's show them what Earth is made of." The room erupted in cheers. People filed out, heading to their stations with renewed purpose. Dae-hyun watched them go, feeling the weight of command on his shoulders. These people trusted him. They believed in this mission because he had asked them to believe. Hai-wan approached him as the room emptied. "Do you really think we can win, Captain? The data shows the Kree have destroyed 17 different civilizations. They're efficient, brutal, and they never stop." Dae-hyun looked at her steadily. "Those 17 civilizations weren't human. We've spent our entire existence fighting impossible odds. The Ice Age tried to freeze us out. We survived. Plagues tried to wipe us out. We adapted. We've fought each other, the environment, predators, diseases, disasters. Everything that could kill us, we've faced and overcome." He turned to look out the viewport at the swirling colors of quantum space rushing past. "The Kree are dangerous, but so are we. Maybe more dangerous than they know. Maybe more dangerous than we know. We're about to find out." 43 hours later, the Indomitable would drop out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of the Velthara system. What they found there would test every word Dae-hyun had just spoken. But for now, the crew prepared. And deep in the ship, in the armory and the hangar and the medical bay, humans made ready for war. The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light speed, and chaos filled every screen on the bridge. Captain Dae-hyun gripped the arms of his chair as the sensor data flooded in. Thousands of contacts. Thousands of ships, if you could call them that. The Kree vessels were organic, living things that pulsed and twisted through space like diseased organs. "Battle stations!" Dae-hyun ordered, his voice calm despite the nightmare before them. Alarms blared throughout the ship. "Get me a tactical assessment." Lieutenant Tae-sung's fingers flew across his console. "Sir, I'm reading approximately 3,000 Kree bioships in orbit around Velthara Prime. They're concentrated around 3 major population centers. The cities are..." "They're dying, sir." On the main screen, the view zoomed in on the planet below. Velthara Prime was a world of endless oceans beneath a sky choked with yellowish clouds. The 3 Velthara cities were visible as glowing domes beneath the waves, but around each dome, the water had turned black. The Kree were everywhere, swarming like ants on a carcass. "Communications, try to raise the Velthara leadership," Dae-hyun commanded. "Channel open, sir. I'm patching you through to someone called Velmara." A holographic image appeared above the communication console. Velmara was clearly an aquatic species, with sleek skin that shifted between blue and green, large eyes adapted for underwater vision, and 4 arms that ended in webbed fingers. She looked exhausted. "This is Captain Dae-hyun of the Earth ship Indomitable. We received your distress call. We're here to help." Velmara stared at him for a long moment. You came?" Someone actually came? Her voice broke. We sent that message to everyone. No one responded. We thought we were going to die alone. You're not alone anymore, Dae-hyun said firmly. How many of your people are left? Less than 4 million now. The Kreeth are breaching the city domes. We can't hold them back. They're too strong, and the environment outside the domes kills us in minutes. We're trapped. Not for long. We're going to enter your atmosphere and provide ground support. Can you mark the locations where you need us most? Velmara's eyes widened. Your species can survive on our surface? The gravity, the heat, the atmosphere? We're from Earth, Dae-hyun said simply, as if that explained everything. And somehow, it did. Tae-sung, begin the attack run. Target the Kreeth bioships between us and the planet. Weapons free. The Indomitable surged forward. Railguns along the hull opened fire, sending solid tungsten projectiles at a fraction of light speed. The first impacts were devastating. Kreeth bioships exploded or split apart, their organic hulls unable to withstand the kinetic force. They're adapting, sir, Tae-sung called out. The ships are thickening their armor, but it's slowing them down. Keep firing. Commander Yujin, launch all fighters. Clear us a path to the atmosphere. Roger that, Captain. Yujin's voice came through the comm from the hangar deck. Moments later, 30 human fighters screamed out of the Indomitable, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Commander Yujin led her squadron in a sweeping attack pattern. She was a pilot with 12 years of experience and reflexes that bordered on supernatural. Her fighter twisted and rolled through incoming Kreeth fire, her weapons taking down 3 bioships in rapid succession. This is Wolf Leader. The Kreeth are slow to react. They've never seen attack patterns like ours, pressing the advantage. The fighters carved through the Kreeth formation. Human tactics, developed through centuries of warfare, proved devastatingly effective against an enemy that relied on overwhelming numbers rather than strategy. On the bridge, Dae-hyun watched the tactical display. Tae-sung, prepare for atmospheric entry. Notify the Marine teams. We're going in hot. The Indomitable punched through the Kreeth blockade and hit the planet's atmosphere like a meteor. The ship shook violently as it descended through the yellowish clouds. Temperature readings spiked, pressure increased. The environment outside would kill most galactic species instantly. In the Marine deployment bay, Sergeant Sang-woo checked his squad's gear one last time. Private Yoon-ji stood next to him, her medical pack secured and her weapon ready. She looked nervous, but her hands were steady. Remember your training, Sang-woo told his Marines. The gravity is going to be heavy. The heat is going to be rough. The air will burn if you breathe it wrong. But we're built for this. This is what Deathworlders do. The ship broke through the clouds. Below them, the black-stained ocean churned with Kreeth activity. One of the Velthara city domes was half-collapsed, water pouring in through massive breaches. That's our target, Dae-hyun said. Get our people down there. The deployment doors opened. Sang-woo's squad, along with 50 other Marines, dropped from the ship in armored pods. They screamed down through the toxic atmosphere, heat shields glowing red-hot. The pods hit the water hard and sank quickly toward the city below. Inside his pod, Sang-woo felt the pressure increase. The gravity was 1.7 times what he was used to. Every movement felt heavier, slower, but his body adapted. Billions of years of evolution on a harsh world had prepared his species for exactly this. The pods breached the side of the damaged dome, and the Marines deployed. Water was everywhere, mixing with air in a chaotic mess. And in that mess, the Kreeth were feeding. Sang-woo got his first good look at the enemy. They were even worse up close. Each Kreeth warrior was the size of a large dog, with armor plating that seemed to shift and flow. Their mandibles dripped with acidic saliva. Their eyes were multifaceted and alien, and they were fast. One of them charged at Private Yoon-ji. She raised her weapon and fired. The high-velocity rounds punched through the Kreeth's armor, and it fell, twitching, but 3 more took its place. "Hold the line!" Sang-Woo roared. His squad formed up, creating a defensive barrier between the Kreeth and a group of terrified Velthara civilians. The Marines fired in controlled bursts. Kreeth warriors fell, but more kept coming. The heat was intense. 68 degrees Celsius, hot enough to make them sweat, hot enough to be uncomfortable. But not hot enough to stop them. The gravity pulled at their bodies, making every movement an effort. But they kept moving. The caustic rain that poured through the broken dome stung exposed skin. But they endured. "This is nothing," Sang-Woo muttered as he reloaded. "I trained in the Australian outback in summer. This is a vacation." Beside him, Yoon-ji was treating a wounded Velthara civilian. The alien was suffering from exposure to the environment, its aquatic skin drying and cracking. Yoon-ji worked quickly, applying medical gel and securing the creature in a protective wrap. Around her, the battle raged, but her hands never shook. Above them, the Indomitable provided fire support. Energy weapons lanced down from the ship, carving through masses of Kreeth. Commander Yujin's fighters strafed the surface, their weapons cutting paths of destruction through the swarm. In the ship's engineering section, Engineer Hyun-sik worked in conditions that would hospitalize most species. The reactor room was running hot, over 50 degrees Celsius, as he pushed the engines beyond their normal limits. Sweat poured down his face, but he smiled. "Come on, baby," he told the reactor. "Just a little more. We've got people to save." For 6 hours, the battle raged. The Marines held their position, refusing to give ground. Every time the Kreeth pushed forward, human weapons drove them back. Every time a Marine fell, another stepped forward to take their place. Dae-hyun watched from the bridge, coordinating the entire operation. His uniform was soaked with sweat. He had been standing for 9 hours straight without rest. His body ached. But he didn't sit down. He wouldn't sit down until his people were safe. "Sir, we're making progress," Tae-sung reported. "The Kreeth are pulling back from the first city. We've saved approximately 800,000 civilians, 800,000 lives." It was something, but it wasn't enough. "Move to the second city," Dae-hyun ordered. "We're not stopping until every last Velthara is safe." Deep in the medical bay, Dr. Mi-young worked on casualties. Human and Velthara alike received treatment. She had been operating for 7 hours without a break, her skills pushed to the limit. But every life she saved felt like a small victory against the darkness outside. On the surface, Sang-Woo's squad advanced through the damaged city, clearing out Kreeth warriors and rescuing trapped civilians. Yoon-ji moved from patient to patient, her medical training serving her well. She worked in a collapsed building during an acid rainstorm, treating both humans and Velthara with equal care. The Kreeth had never faced an enemy like this. They had crushed 17 civilizations because no one could fight in the environments they created, but humans weren't like other species. Humans had been forged in fire. They had been shaped by a world that showed no mercy, and now, in the depths of hell itself, they were showing the galaxy what that meant. The battle for Velthara had begun, and Earth's Deathworlders were just getting started. Hour 36. The battle had been raging for a day and a half, and the Indomitable was showing the strain. Scorch marks covered the hull. 3 of the main railguns were offline. The starboard engine was running at 60% capacity. But the ship kept fighting. On the bridge, Captain Dae-hyun leaned against his command chair, his face drawn with exhaustion. He hadn't slept since they arrived. Couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the casualty reports climbing higher. "Sir, we've lost contact with Marine Squad 7, Lieutenant Tae-sung said quietly. His voice was hoarse from hours of giving orders. Last known position was in the 3rd city's eastern sector. "Send Squad 9 to their location," Dae-hyun ordered. Another squad lost. That was the fourth one in 6 hours. Good people, brave people, dead because he had brought them here. No, not because of him. Because someone had to answer. Because the Kreeth couldn't be allowed to win. Because the Velthara deserved to live. He kept telling himself that. It helped, a little. Dr. HFY appeared beside him, holding a data pad. She looked worse than he felt, if that was possible. Her glasses were cracked, and there was dried blood on her uniform from helping in the medical bay during a casualty surge. Captain, I need to show you something. It's about the Kreeth. Dae-hyun pulled himself upright. What is it? They're more intelligent than we thought. Much more intelligent. She pulled up a holographic display showing communication patterns. I've been analyzing their movements. They're not just swarming randomly, they're testing us, learning our patterns, adapting to our tactics. How is that possible? I thought they were just aggressive predators. That's what everyone thought, but look at this. She zoomed in on a specific battle sequence. Here, they tried a frontal assault. We repelled them easily. But here, 2 hours later, they came from 3 different angles simultaneously. And here, 4 hours after that, they used a feint to draw our forces out of position. Dae-hyun felt ice in his veins. They're getting smarter, learning from every engagement. Worse than that, I think they're communicating. All of them. Like a hive mind, but more sophisticated. HFY pulled up more data. I've detected quantum-entangled particles in their neural tissue. They're sharing information instantaneously across the entire swarm. Can we disrupt it? Maybe. But I'd need time to build a quantum disruptor. And I'd need to deploy it at the source. The Kreeth hive ship. Dae-hyun looked at the tactical display. The hive ship was at the center of the swarm, surrounded by hundreds of bioships. It was massive. 10 times the size of the Indomitable. Getting close to it would be suicide. How long to build the disruptor? 12 hours, maybe less if I can get help from engineering. Do it. I'll find a way to deliver it. In the third city, Sergeant Sang-woo's squad was pinned down. They had been holding a position for 18 hours straight, protecting a shelter full of Velthara civilians. The Kreeth kept coming in waves, and ammunition was running low. Corporal Wanshik, Sang-woo called out to his demolitions expert. How many charges do we have left? Wanshik checked his pack. He was a short, stocky man with hands that never stopped moving. 4, Sergeant. Maybe 5 if I break down the one I was saving for emergencies. Use them all. Set a perimeter. We need to buy more time. The gravity was crushing. Every movement felt like wearing a 100-pound pack. Sang-woo's legs ached. His back screamed in protest, but he kept moving. Marines didn't stop. Deathworlders didn't quit. Private Yoonji was treating her 7th wounded Marine of the hour. This one had taken acid burns across his chest when a Kreeth warrior exploded too close. The wounds were severe, but she worked with steady hands, cleaning and sealing the injuries while Kreeth mandibles clicked in the darkness around them. Am I going to make it? The Marine asked, his voice weak. Yes, Yoonji said firmly. You're going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. Just stay with me. She didn't mention that they were surrounded, that their evacuation had been delayed, that they might not see another hour. He didn't need to know that. He needed hope. Above them, Commander Yoo-jin was having the worst day of her life. She had lost 3 pilots in the last hour. Good pilots. Friends. She had watched their fighters explode on her tactical display, their life signs winking out in an instant. Wolf leader to all flights, she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. We've got Marine squads trapped on the surface. They need extraction, and they need it now. I know you're tired. I know you're scared. But we're not leaving our people behind. Her squadron responded with determination. They were tired. They were scared. But they were also human, and humans didn't abandon their own. In the engineering section, Hyun-sik was working in conditions that defied belief. The reactor room was now running at 70 degrees Celsius. The air shimmered with heat. Most species would be dead in minutes. But Hyun-sik kept working, his hands sure despite the sweat pouring into his eyes. "Come on, you beautiful machine," he muttered, adjusting the reactor output. "Just keep running. We need every bit of power you can give." A hull breach in the adjoining section sent a blast of superheated air through the reactor room. The temperature spiked to 85 degrees. Hyun-sik cursed, but didn't leave his post. His body was screaming at him to move, to escape the heat. But he was an engineer, and engineers didn't abandon their ship. On the bridge, Lieutenant Ji-hai hunched over the intelligence console. She was the ship's intelligence officer, quiet and analytical. For the past 10 hours, she had been trying to crack the Kreeth communication system. "Captain," she said suddenly, "I think I've found something." Dae-hyun moved to her station. "What is it?" "The quantum-entangled particles Dr. Haewon mentioned, they're not just for communication. They're forming a network. Every Kreeth warrior is connected to every other warrior, and they're all connected to the Hive ship. So if we disrupt the Hive ship's connection, the entire swarm loses coordination. They'd be fighting individually instead of as a unified force." It was the breakthrough they needed. Dae-hyun felt hope flare in his chest. "Get that information to Dr. Haewon immediately. It might help her complete the disruptor faster." In the medical bay, Dr. Mi-young was surrounded by wounded. Humans and Velthara filled every bed, every floor space, every available surface. She moved from patient to patient, performing triage with exhausted efficiency. A young Marine looked up at her with glassy eyes. "Are we winning, Doc?" Mi-young paused. She could tell him the truth, that they were barely holding on, that casualties were mounting, that the Kreeth seemed endless. But instead, she smiled. "We're still here, aren't we? That means we haven't lost, and as long as we're still fighting, we have a chance." The Marine smiled back and closed his eyes, trusting her words. Hour 40. Dae-hyun received word that Squad 7 had been found. All dead. They had fought to the last Marine, protecting a group of Velthara children. The children survived, the Marines didn't. He added their names to the growing list in his mind, names he would never forget, people who had trusted him to lead them. A message came through from Earth Command. They had received his mission reports. They wanted him to withdraw immediately. This wasn't humanity's fight. The losses were too high. Come home. Dae-hyun looked at the message for a long moment. Then he deleted it. "Sir?" Tae-sung asked quietly. "We're not leaving," Dae-hyun said. "Not until every Velthara civilian is safe. Not until the Kreeth are driven back. The galaxy gave up on these people. We won't." Tae-sung nodded. He hadn't expected any other answer. Dr. Haewon appeared on the bridge 11 hours later. She looked ready to collapse, but her eyes were bright with triumph. "It's ready. The quantum disruptor. It'll sever the Kreeth-Hive mind connection. But someone has to fly it directly into the Hive ship's core and deploy it manually. The electromagnetic interference is too strong for remote operation." Everyone on the bridge understood what that meant. A suicide mission, flying through the entire Kreeth fleet into the heart of their Hive ship with no guarantee of survival. "I'll do it," Lieutenant Tae-sung said immediately. Dae-hyun looked at his tactical officer, his friend. "Tae-sung!" "Sir, I'm the best pilot we have after Commander Yu-jin, and we need her in space combat. It has to be me." Dae-hyun wanted to argue, wanted to find another way. But they were out of time and out of options. He put his hand on Tae-sung's shoulder. "Come back alive. That's an order." Tae-sung smiled. "I'll do my best, sir." The longest night of the battle was about to end, and the dawn would bring either salvation or destruction. Lieutenant Tae-sung sat in the cockpit of the small fighter, the quantum disruptor secured in the cargo bay behind him. Through the canopy, He could see the Kreeth hive ship in the distance. It pulsed with organic light, a massive living thing that commanded thousands of bioships. "All systems green," he reported over the comm. "Ready for launch." Captain Dae-hyun's voice came through clearly. "The entire fleet will support your run. Commander Yoo-jin will clear a path. The Indomitable will provide covering fire. We're going to get you there, Tae-sung. I know you will, sir." Tae-sung took a deep breath. His hands were steady on the controls. 20 years of training had prepared him for this moment. "See you on the other side." "For all humanity," Dae-hyun said quietly. "For all humanity," Tae-sung echoed. Then he launched. The fighter screamed away from the Indomitable, its engines burning white-hot. Immediately, dozens of Kreeth bioships turned toward him. They sensed the threat, even if they didn't understand it. "All ships, this is Captain Dae-hyun. Operation Final Strike is go. Protect that fighter at all costs." The entire human fleet surged forward. Commander Yoo-jin led her squadron in a sweeping attack that drew the Kreeth's attention. The Indomitable's railguns opened up, sending tungsten rounds into the enemy formation. On the surface, every Marine squad was given orders to push forward, forcing the Kreeth to divide their forces. Tae-sung flew like a man possessed. His fighter twisted through incoming fire, rolling and diving with precision that seemed impossible. A Kreeth bioship exploded to his left. Another disintegrated to his right. The path ahead was a nightmare of organic weaponry and living ships. "Taking heavy fire," he reported, his voice calm despite the alarms screaming in his cockpit. "Shields at 60%. "Keep going," Dae-hyun ordered. "You're almost there." A massive explosion rocked the Indomitable. The ship shuddered, and damage reports flooded in. A Kreeth suicide ship had rammed into the port side, breaching 3 decks. "Hull breach on deck 7, 8, and 9, reported the damage control officer. "We're venting atmosphere." "Seal those sections," Dae-hyun commanded. "Hyun-sik, I need engines at full power." In the engineering section, Hyun-sik was already ahead of him. The engineer pushed the reactor beyond every safety limit. The temperature in the engine room hit 90 degrees Celsius. His skin felt like it was burning. But the engines roared to life, giving the ship the power it needed. "You've got full power, Captain, for as long as the ship holds together." On the surface, Sergeant Sang-woo's squad launched their final assault. They had been holding the same position for 20 hours, but now it was time to move. The Kreeth were distracted by the space battle, and that gave them an opening. "Move! Move! Move!" Sang-woo roared. His Marines charged forward, weapons blazing. Private Yoon-ji ran with them, her medical pack bouncing on her back. She was terrified and exhausted, and her body screamed with every step. But she ran anyway. They reached the civilian shelter and began evacuating the Velthara inside. Thousands of aquatic aliens, terrified and injured but alive. They had survived because humans had stood between them and death. In space, Tae-sung was getting closer. The hive ship loomed before him, massive and terrible. His shields were down to 20%. Warning lights covered his console. But he didn't slow down. 500 meters, he called out. 400, 300. A Kreeth bioship materialized in front of him, cutting off his path. He didn't hesitate. He fired every weapon he had and flew straight through the explosion. His fighter shuddered as debris tore into the hull, the cockpit filled with smoke. "Shields gone, hull integrity at 30%, but I'm still flying." 200 meters, Tae-sung, Dae-hyun said. His voice was tight. "You can make it." Tae-sung laughed. It was a sound of pure determination. "Of course I can make it, sir. I'm human. We don't know how to quit." Commander Yoo-jin's squadron formed a protective screen around him, their fighters dying one by one to keep him safe. She watched 3 more pilots disappear from her tactical display. 3 more friends, but they had done their job. Tae-sung was going to make it. 100 meters, 50 meters. I'm at the hive ship's outer membrane. The Kreeth hive ship tried to close its organic ports, sensing the danger. But Tae-sung was faster. His fighter punched through the membrane and into the ship's interior. The inside was like flying through a living body. Walls of flesh pulsed around him. Bioluminescent fluids dripped from organic structures. "I'm in, looking for the neural core." He followed the quantum signatures that Dr. Hae-won had programmed into his navigation system. The core was deep inside the ship, protected by layers of organic armor. His fighter was falling apart around him. Flames licked at the edges of the cockpit. The air was getting thin. "Core located. Deploying disruptor now." Tae-sung hit the release button. The quantum disruptor ejected from his cargo bay and attached itself to the hive ship's neural core. It began to pulse with energy, building toward activation. "Disruptor deployed. Getting out of here." He turned his dying fighter around and headed back toward the exit. The hive ship was reacting, trying to reject the foreign device. Organic matter began flowing toward the disruptor, attempting to cover it. "It's working," Dr. Hae-won shouted from the bridge of the Indomitable. "The quantum disruption is spreading through the entire network." "Just a few more seconds." But those seconds were the longest of Tae-sung's life. His fighter was barely responding. The engines were failing. The structural integrity was at 5%. He could see the exit ahead, the opening back to space. Then the quantum disruptor activated. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every Kreeth warrior, every bioship, every single member of the swarm suddenly lost connection to the hive mind. They had never fought as individuals before. They didn't know how. In space, the Kreeth fleet descended into chaos. Ships collided with each other. Attack patterns fell apart. The organized swarm became a mob of confused creatures. "All units, press the attack," Dae-hyun ordered. "Hit them while they're disorganized." The human fleet surged forward. Commander Yoo-jin's squadron carved through the confused Kreeth ships. The Indomitable's weapons found targets everywhere. On the surface, Sang-woo's Marines pushed forward against Kreeth warriors that suddenly didn't know how to coordinate their attacks. But in the hive ship, Tae-sung was in trouble. The explosion from the quantum disruptor had damaged his fighter beyond repair. He was flying on backup power with no shields, no weapons, and barely any hull left. "Tae-sung, report!" Dae-hyun called urgently. "I'm still here, sir." Tae-sung's voice was weak. "But the ship is dead. I'm going to make it out on inertia alone. Maybe." He cleared the hive ship's membrane and drifted into space. His fighter was a burning wreck. Alarms filled the cockpit. He could see the Indomitable in the distance, but it might as well have been on the other side of the galaxy. "Yoo-jin," Dae-hyun snapped. "Get a tractor beam on that fighter, now." "Already on it, Captain." Commander Yoo-jin's squadron swept in, one of them latching a tractor beam onto Tae-sung's dying ship. They dragged it back toward the Indomitable, while fighting off the few Kreeth ships that were still functional. The battle raged for another 6 hours. But without coordination, the Kreeth were no match for human tactics and determination. One by one, their ships were destroyed. On the surface, the Marines drove them back, reclaiming the cities and saving the remaining civilians. When the last Kreeth ship finally fled, jumping to faster-than-light speed to escape, the human fleet was battered but victorious. On the surface, Sergeant Sang-woo stood among the ruins of the third city, surrounded by his exhausted Marines. Private Yun-ji sat on a piece of rubble, her medical pack empty, her hands covered in blood, both human and alien. They had saved thousands of lives. They had held the line when anyone else would have broken. In the medical bay, Dr. Mi-young finally sat down. She had been operating for 47 straight hours. Around her, patients rested in beds, recovering from wounds that would have killed them if not for her skill. She closed her eyes and let herself feel the weight of exhaustion. In engineering, Hyun-sik shut down the reactor to emergency power levels. The temperature in the engine room began to drop. He leaned against the wall and slid down to sit on the floor. He had kept the ship running through impossible conditions. His body was covered in burns and his hands shook with fatigue, but they had won. On the bridge, Captain Dae-hyun watched as Tae-sung's fighter was brought into the hangar bay. Rescue teams pulled the lieutenant from the wreckage. He was barely conscious, covered in burns, but alive. "Medical team to hangar bay 1, Dae-hyun said quietly. Then, louder, "Attention all hands! The battle is over. The Kreeth have been driven from the Velthara system. The mission is complete." Cheers erupted throughout the ship. People who had been fighting for 2 days straight found the energy to celebrate. They had done the impossible. They had answered a call that 47 other civilizations had ignored. And they had won. Velmara's holographic image appeared on the bridge. The Velthara leader's eyes were filled with tears. "Captain Dae-hyun, your species, you saved us. When no one else would come, when we had given up hope, you came. You fought in conditions that would kill anyone else. You sacrificed your own people to protect ours. Why? Why would you do this for strangers?" Dae-hyun was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, tired but genuine. "Because someone had to. Because you asked for help, and we could provide it. Because that's what humans do. We answer the call. We stand between the darkness and those who can't defend themselves. We're Deathworlders. It's not just what we are, it's who we are." The Indomitable limped back toward Earth 3 days later. The journey was slow. The ship was damaged, the crew exhausted, and they had lost 37 people. But they had saved over 4 million Velthara lives. They had proven that humanity deserved its place in the galaxy. News of the battle spread faster than light. Within a week, every species in the Galactic Union knew what had happened. Humans, the species from the Death World, had fought in conditions impossible for anyone else. They had faced an enemy that had destroyed 17 civilizations, and they had won. Diplomatic requests flooded Earth, trade agreements, defense pacts, technology exchanges. Suddenly, humanity wasn't isolated on the outer rim anymore. They were valuable, they were respected, they were needed. Captain Dae-hyun stood before the Galactic Council 3 months later, receiving the Star of Valor. He was the first human ever awarded the honor. As he accepted it, he thought about his crew, about the people who had sacrificed everything. "This medal isn't mine alone," he said. "It belongs to every person who served on the Indomitable. Every Marine who held the line, every pilot who flew into fire, every engineer who kept our ship running, every medic who saved lives. They're the real heroes. They're what humanity is about." And in the far corners of the galaxy, more distress calls began to echo through space. Impossible situations, dangerous environments, hopeless battles, and humanity prepared to answer them all, because that's what Deathworlders do.